Who is the kindest, rudest celebrities you've met IRL? I have worked with Steve Martin and Martin Short. They are both super nice, respectful, and incredibly dedicated to their craft. They'll spend hours finessing a couple lines in a show they do every night just to get it right for that evening's performance. My sibling has a terminal illness in the 80s and Make-A-Wish sent our family to the set of Knight Rider to meet David Hasselhoff. Was cool, but that's not what matters. Fast forward 30 years and I'm at Heathrow picking up a family member when I see the Hoff standing there on his phone. I approach him and wait for him to end his call. He looks at me and says hello. I tell him that we met. He looks at me and say, was their name? He remembered their name after 30 years. That will always stay with me. I proposed to my wife at a restaurant in Cowley. Afterwards, Michael Keaton leaned over from his table with his family and enthusiastically congratulated us. Very kind and friendly. I used to serve Rachel McAdams at a restaurant fairly regularly. She was always super sweet. Very low-key and soft-spoken in person. She and her husband would come in late and keep to themselves. Ian McKellen came to the spa I worked at and was absolutely lovely. We didn't sell ice cream but there was a farm shop across the road and I mentioned it and he asked me if I'd take him there. My friend who worked in the farm shop had his mouth open the whole time seeing me buying ice cream with Gandalf. I was an extra on The Last of Us and met Pedro Pascal. He was super nice. We technically weren't allowed to talk to the talent and they'd usually ignore us but he and Gabriel Luna talked to us anyway. Giancarlo Esposito was incredibly warm and also told me I should try and get into voice acting. I have never and will never attempt to do so but it was such a nice compliment for no reason. Penn and Teller hang out in the lobby after their show in Vegas to chat and sign autographs. Very friendly and yes, Teller can talk. I met Weird Al at a con once. While he was signing the photo I bought, I told him about how he inspired me to write my own parody songs. He seemed genuinely interested and asked if I had a YouTube channel, but I told him I just write them, not record them. Super nice dude at least for the brief time we spoke. Jeff Goldblum, after a matinee of The Pillow Man. Autographs, photos, asking people where they were from, what else they had seen were going to see. One girl mentioned they were in the city for her birthday as she was taking a photo of him with her friends. He stopped and said, "How can you not be in your own birthday picture?" Took her camera and grabbed someone from the crowd to take a picture of the group. Would not leave until he was sure everyone got what they wanted despite his assistant or handler trying to move him along for dinner before the evening performance. Bryan Cranston. He was filming an episode of Malcolm in the Middle in a Sherman Oaks shopping mall. I happened to be there with my kids and we had just bought some Cease candies. We were walking and he approached us and said, "Oh, you bought me candy?" We laughed, gave him a piece and he autographed the candy bag. He spent a few minutes with us and was very down to earth, and funny. I met Tyler the Creator at a Chick-fil-A in LA, and was terrified to ask for a photo, but did so anyway. He agreed very sternly, on the firm condition that I hold the sauce for his nuggets, and so in the photo I'm holding the lil packet, but in the background he is absolutely cackling with laughter. He then broke the facade, dapped me up, said he loves pranking people like that, and proceeded to ask me all about my life for 5-10 minutes. He also shared some fairly intimate details of his own life. A strange and beautiful man. Back in 2004-ish, John Cena and Batista gave me a spot at the gym at like 5 a.m. Super nice guys. Saw me on the bench press working alone and just walked over unprovoked to spot me. We talked for a little bit and finished our workouts together. Gave me a couple pointers. I've always rooted for them to succeed since then. Went to a book signing with Ian McKellen signing a LOTR art book when the first movie came out. His scheduled time was over but he stayed for like an hour overtime to sign for everyone in line. Michael Lerner was the rudest, most entitled prick I've ever met. Marissa Tomei is a sweetheart. Patrick Stewart made me feel like he really listened and cared about every word I said to him in the 2 minutes we shook hands and chatted. Proper gent. Met Adam Sandler in Hawaii. Super nice guy. Met Hulk Hogan at a Publix in Miami Beach once back when I was in high school years ago. He was next to me while I was at an aisle looking for something, and I remember looking at him and quickly looking away and him doing the same. Here was our interaction. Hulk Hogan. Yep. Huh. Cool. And that was it. 10/10 would recommend. Met Keanu Reeves when I was 10 years old when his band Dogstar were touring in the UK. My mum knew the guy who ran the venue and he managed to sneak a friend and me backstage. He came out of the toilet, saw us, came straight over and said hello, offered us a soft drink and was truly nice. It was pre-Matrix 96 I think, so his tour bus was scrawled with people graffitiing "There's a bomb on this bus" all over it. Classic. I live fairly close to John Bernthal. I ran into him while hiking up in the mountains way out in the middle of nowhere. He was very nice and friendly, but I didn't make a deal of talking to him or taking pictures with him since he had his kids with him and I was up there to avoid people, so I'm sure he was as well. Not me but a friend of mine. He works as a professional bodyguard and when Rihanna came to town he was tasked with watching her. Said has never met a person who was that rude to their subordinates as she was. Allegedly threw stuff as the stagehands, spoke shit about her dress makeup people in front of them. Even he had a turn at enjoying her opinions of him. Has worked with a few other big names before but according to him she takes the cake. Loretta Lynn. Long story short, she showed up late for a show where the dressing rooms were first come, first serve. She didn't get one and had to get ready in the big bathroom backstage. I was 13. She asked if I had a second to help her a bit. I stayed with her all night. She told stories. We laughed so much. It was like hanging out with your grandmother. I am from Nashville and she was, of course, a legend. Just one of the kindest women I have the pleasure of meeting. Usher tipped me in Usher bucks. These have non-legal tender stamped all over the bills. Mark Hamill and Sam Witwer are both incredibly kind. Ellen is a terrible person. Robin Williams was filming something nearby and randomly came into my mom's humble little Polish-speaking travel agency and sat down for a half-hour making everyone in the room laugh, including old little foreign ladies who didn't know who he was. He signed some autographs and my mom said he was the funniest person she's ever seen and just lit the room up. Worked for a company that did all the security for the local theaters. Met a bunch of musicians and comedians. The nicest was hands down Tori Amos. She's was the first celebrity to come up and introduce herself to me. Just so down to earth and sweet. Cyndi Lauper is another that was extremely nice and gracious. I had heard horror stories about other celebrities but never ever met one that was dick. Honestly, the biggest dicks I worked with were usually the local musicians. Certainly not all of them, but it was enough. Ryan Gosling was a pretty nice down-to-earth guy. Met him at a motorcycle shop. My dad met Harrison Ford. One day my dad was working at his job, a helicopter mechanic, and Harrison just flew in on his plane after radioing in asking for fuel. Apparently he was super nice. I used to work at a resort hotel in Daytona Beach. Kindest celeb was Ben Affleck, who was there for an event and just wanted to get away from the crowd for a few. Ended up smoking a cig in the employee smoking area and was super nice to the staff that were out there on break. Worst was Sheryl Crow, who insisted on bringing her golden retriever up to her room even though we didn't allow pets, barked orders at literally everyone, and forced her PA to take the dog outside for a walk at 3 a.m.